It was the early hours of Halloween morning, 1969, on Earl Street in Glasgow. The city, often blanketed by rain and mist, seemed to hold its breath. In the small yard behind a row of aging tenement buildings, the body of a woman lay motionless. Her handbag was spilled out across the cold ground, a single cufflink glinting nearby, strangely out of place. Just hours earlier, a man had been quoting Bible verses in a taxi. Who was he really? And why did he choose the Barrowland Ballroom as his hunting ground? To understand the answer, we must step back into a world where nightly dances offered escape, where the city's social life pulsed beneath flickering neon lights. But behind the music, something much darker was lurking. This case would go on to haunt Glasgow for decades. It wasn't just the brutality of the crime, or the fact that 3 women lost their lives in eerily similar ways. It was the chilling sense that the killer could be anyone. A well-dressed stranger, blending in at a local dance. The press would eventually give him a name: Bible John. But that night, there were only questions. Why did he quote scripture to his victims? What compelled him to strike on nights of celebration when the city was alive with laughter and hope? As dawn broke over Earl Street, police were only beginning to realize the scale of what had happened. A single night had shattered the safety of Glasgow's social scene and sparked one of the largest manhunts in Scottish history. The story of Bible John was just beginning, and as the investigation unfolded, each answer seemed only to raise more troubling questions. Portraits of the victims, lives interrupted before the headlines and the fear. There were just 3 women. Each had her own dreams, her own struggles, her own routines. On the surface, their stories seemed unconnected. But as we look closer, threads begin to intertwine, drawing them all toward the same tragic fate. Patricia Docker was only 25. She lived in the Battlefield neighborhood, a part of Glasgow known for its tight-knit community and rows of stone houses. Patricia was a nurse, devoted to her young son, trying to carve out a space for herself in the world. On the night of February 22, 1968, she decided to attend an over-25s dance, a rare chance to let loose, to step out from behind the walls of daily responsibility. She never made it home. The next morning, her body was discovered near a garage entrance. Her belongings were gone, her handbag later found discarded in the river cart. It was a loss that sent shockwaves through her family and the neighborhood. Jemima MacDonald was younger, a woman who loved to dance, always quick with a smile. On August 16, 1969, she set out for the Barrowland Ballroom, dressed for a night of excitement. She left the floor with a man described as well-dressed, neat, and charming. Days later, her sister would make a grim discovery. Jemima's body, hidden in a derelict flat in Bridgeton. Helen Puttock was 29, a mother and a sister. Like Patricia and Jemima, she found freedom in music and movement. On Halloween night, she went dancing with her sister, Jean. By sunrise, Helen's life had been violently taken, her body left not far from home, evidence of a brutal attack unmistakable. 3 women, each searching for a brief moment of joy in a city always on edge. But beneath the glittering lights of Barrowland, darkness had been waiting. Patterns and warnings, cracks beneath the surface. As the investigation deepened, detectives began to notice unsettling patterns, details that linked the victims and suggested a killer with motives far darker than simple violence or theft. All 3 women were adults. Each had been at the Barrowland Ballroom the night they vanished, and each had left the venue with a man described as courteous, almost gentlemanly. But it was what happened next that exposed a chilling reality. The bodies told a story the city struggled to comprehend. Patricia Docker, Jemima MacDonald, and Helen Puttock had all suffered beatings and had been strangled. Their handbags were missing. But there was something else, something rarely seen in such cases. Investigators noted that all three women were believed to be in their menstrual period at the time of their deaths, a detail that, though not widely reported, would haunt the investigation for years. Was this a twisted coincidence, or a clue to the killer's obsession? Even more perplexing were accounts of the suspect's behavior. He wasn't just a stranger in the night. He played a role, wearing a mask of morality. Survivors and witnesses described a man who spoke with authority, quoted from the Bible, and discussed morality, especially the subject of adultery, while riding in a taxi with his victims. It was as if he wanted to be seen as above suspicion, a man of principle. But behind that facade, the violence was almost ritualistic. Why did he choose these women, on these nights? If it was robbery, why the ritual, the missing handbags, the calculated targeting at Barrowland? And if it was something more, a personal obsession, a warped sense of righteousness, what could have driven him to kill again and again? The case was no longer about random violence. It was about a calculated predator hiding in plain sight, using charm and scripture to lower his victim's guard. For detectives, each new piece of evidence only deepened the mystery, and the fear that he could strike again at any moment. The night it happened, timelines of terror. The city of Glasgow, with its rain-slicked streets and restless energy, saw 3 ordinary nights become the backdrop for extraordinary tragedy. Each event, when pieced together, paints a disturbing portrait of a killer who stalked the shadows just beyond the dance floor. On February 22, 1968, Patricia Docker left her home for a night of dancing. The Over 25s event was meant to be a safe space, a chance for adults to socialize without worry. But by dawn, hope had turned to horror. Patricia's body was discovered at Carmichael Place, near a garage entrance, bearing injuries to her face and head. The cause of death was clear: strangulation. Her clothes and belongings were missing. The sense of safety for women in Glasgow would never quite return. August 16, 1969. Jemima MacDonald, full of life and anticipation, attended Barrowland Ballroom, never suspecting she'd been noticed by a man who fit in too well. Witnesses recalled seeing Jemima leave the venue with a neat, well-dressed young man. For 2 days, she was missing. Then, on August 18th, her sister, driven by dread, searched a derelict flat on McKeith Street. The truth was unbearable. Jemima's life had ended there, alone, in the shadows of an abandoned building. Halloween night, October 30th, 1969. Helen Puttock went dancing at Barrowland with her sister, Jean Langford. The two met a man calling himself John. After the dance, they shared a taxi. Jean was dropped off first at Yoker. The taxi turned back toward Earl Street, carrying Helen and the stranger into the early morning hours. Around 2:00 a.m., someone saw a man matching the suspect's description running on Dumbarton Road, his face scratched and red. Moments later, Helen's body was found near her home in Scotstoun. A cufflink, later recognized as out of place, remained at the scene, hinting at a struggle. 3 nights, 3 lives extinguished. Each timeline different, yet all ending with the same devastating silence. The city would never forget. The investigation, witnesses, forensics, and eliminating suspects. As fear took hold of Glasgow, police scrambled to piece together the truth behind the Barrowland murders. The investigation grew into one of the largest in Scottish history, drawing on every available resource. But the case would come to rest on a handful of crucial details and the memories of those who'd come closest to the killer. The most significant witness was Jean Langford, Helen Puttock's sister. She'd spent hours alongside the man calling himself John. Her testimony provided the first real glimpse of the suspect, tall and thin, with reddish blonde hair, piercing blue-gray eyes, and prominent overlapping front teeth. He wore a sharp suit, Reed and Taylor brand, police would later learn, and ankle-high boots. John had strong opinions on adultery, morality, and sin. His knowledge of the Bible seemed almost rehearsed. And yet, there was something unnerving about his calm confidence, as if he relished being noticed. This description allowed police to release a composite sketch, the first time in Scotland's history that a murder suspect's likeness was broadcast so widely. In June 1970, detectives went even further, using the new PhotoFit system to create a more detailed image. The response was overwhelming. More than 50,000 statements taken, over 5,000 men questioned, plainclothes officers staking out the Barrowland ballroom every Thursday and Saturday night, hoping the killer might return. Forensics advanced too. Semen found on the stockings used to strangle Helen was preserved, an unusual step for the late 1960s. Years later, these samples would become crucial as DNA technology evolved. Police exhumed the body of John Irvine McInnes in 1996, suspecting a link, but the evidence fell short. In 2005, improved testing ruled him out entirely. The notorious serial killer Peter Tobin, long rumored as a possible Bible John, was also eliminated through DNA. Each lead seemed to collapse under scrutiny, but the determination of the investigators was relentless. For every door that closed, another was forced open, driven by the hope that one overlooked clue, one hidden truth, might finally reveal Bible John's identity. The turning point. Twists, new evidence, and false dawns. Sometimes, it only takes a single detail to turn the tide of an investigation. For the Bible John case, the first breakthrough came when police made the decision to release a public composite sketch. For the people of Glasgow, it was a haunting image, a face no longer hidden, but staring back from every newspaper, shop window, and television screen. Suddenly, the fear became personal. Any neighbor or stranger at a dance hall could fit the description. The pressure on the authorities intensified, as did the hopes of the public. Would this finally unmask a killer hiding in plain sight? But the investigation's greatest promise and frustration came with the advent of forensic science. In the decades following the murders, detectives preserved every scrap of potential evidence, waiting for the day when technology might catch up with their hopes. In 1996, the exhumation of John Irvine McInnes seemed poised to deliver closure. DNA testing, however, was inconclusive. Newer methods in 2005 finally ruled him out entirely. Attention then shifted to Peter Tobin, a convicted serial killer with chilling similarities. Yet, DNA evidence once again refused to cooperate. Tobin, too, was eliminated. So, where did that leave the case? As the years rolled on, hope flickered, but refused to die. The investigation pivoted to modern methods: genetic genealogy, advanced DNA forensics, and even podcasts reignited public interest. In 2023, a BBC series resurfaced old accusations of identity cover-ups from the 1960s. Then, in 2024, author Jill Bevan-Mizzy publicly named John Templeton as a possible suspect, a claim so provocative that Police Scotland formally agreed to review her research. And yet, as of now, no official confirmation has followed. The shadow of doubt lingers. Each new revelation promised to crack the case wide open. Each forensic breakthrough, each tip-off, each name in the headlines only led investigators back to the beginning. Bible John, it seemed, was always just beyond reach. But for the families, for the city, and for the detectives, giving up was never an option. No verdict, an open case and the unending pursuit. As the years passed and the case files grew thicker, one fact remained painfully clear. There would be no justice delivered in a courtroom, no verdict read out before a hushed audience. No suspect ever stood trial for the Barrowland murders. The name Bible John became a symbol of unfinished business, a haunting presence in the city's collective memory. Every so often, new evidence or a fresh lead reignited hope. Each new wave of technology brought with it the promise that science might finally close the gap left by the limitations of the past. DNA analysis, once a distant dream, was now routine, yet every comparison, every painstaking attempt to match a profile to the samples preserved in the 1960s ended with another elimination. The key suspects, from John Irvin McInnes to Peter Tobin and beyond, all fell away. Faces changed, investigators retired, but the case never truly closed. Police Scotland kept the files open, reviewing them periodically, especially when public interest surged, whether sparked by investigative journalism, true crime podcasts, or new books proposing yet another suspect. In 2024, a fresh review was triggered by Jill Bavin-Mizzy's book naming John Templeton, but as of now, no conclusive links have been established. The process of reevaluation itself became a ritual, a sign of the enduring impact these unsolved murders have left on both law enforcement and the community. For the families of Patricia Docker, Jemima MacDonald, and Helen Puddock, the absence of a trial meant living with questions that never truly faded. For Glasgow, Bible John's shadow stretched across generations, a reminder that even in the most determined investigations, some mysteries refuse to give up their secrets. The pursuit of answers, however, endures, every file still open, every possibility still considered. Aftermath and lessons. The echoes of fear and memory. Long after the last headlines faded and the police sketches curled at the corners, the legacy of Bible John lingered. In Glasgow, the Barrowland Ballroom, once a symbol of music and community, became a place shadowed by unease. For years, women thought twice before walking home alone after a dance. Parents warned their daughters, and friends promised never to leave each other's sit. The face of Bible John, forever frozen in that police sketch, haunted a city's imagination, coloring every whisper of danger, every story of a stranger at the door. Public pressure mounted on police, shaping how investigations were handled for decades to come. The media, eager for answers, sometimes blurred the line between fact and rumor, feeding a sense of paranoia that stretched far beyond the case itself. Even as time passed, the memory of those nights, of lives interrupted, of justice denied, remained a cautionary tale. But beneath the fear, valuable lessons emerged. Investigators learned the hard way about the critical importance of preserving physical evidence, even when science had not yet caught up. The case exposed the limits of composite sketches and the pitfalls of relying solely on witness accounts, especially in an era before CCTV and widespread forensics. Most importantly, Bible John became a symbol for the power and the limitations of community vigilance. Hopes pinned on technological breakthroughs like DNA matching and genetic genealogy have shown both promise and frustration. Decades later, the case stands as a reminder that beneath the surface of any city, shadows may linger, and that answers are sometimes just out of reach. But the determination to find the truth and the duty to remember those lost endures. In the end, this tragedy reminds us, sometimes, the most important lesson is never to give up searching for the light, no matter how long the night. The Bible John case remains one of Scotland's most haunting mysteries. Between 1968 and 1969, 3 women were murdered after nights out at Glasgow's Barrowland Ballroom. Despite massive manhunts, detailed eyewitness accounts, and decades of evolving forensic science, the true identity of Bible John has never been confirmed. For the victims' families, for the investigators, and for the city of Glasgow, the search for answers continues, a testament to both the darkness that can hide in plain sight and the resilience of those determined to expose it. If you're fascinated by unsolved mysteries and the enduring quest for justice, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into the world's most chilling cases. Your support helps keep these stories alive, and may even inspire new leads, new questions, and new hope. Stay vigilant, stay curious,